Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me?
Hello, Vic. Yes, I can. How are you?
Hey, man, wonderful. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good. I think it's the third time we speak to each other.
I believe so. I think once per album. So yeah, third time.
And before going through my questions, I have a confession to make. I and my wife saw you at the Symphony X concert. You were watching the Haken set. You were
In Chicago.
yes, and you were in front of me. Well, you had your back turned to me.
That's awesome.
And I did. No, it is, but it's not because we were so shy and we didn't even say hi. So, hi, Vic.
I understand.
Hi, Vic. How are you?
Wow, that's funny.
Well,
Man, that's too bad. I wish you'd said something. But I mean, I know how it is. I'm the same way when I see people I know but I don't know. It's like,
yeah,
I want to say hi, but then I don't. So
with
I do that.
musicians, you think that you know the person, and I don't know. It's kind of a strange situation, but
That's really funny. I mean, I think that in the modern time we have this weird experience where we kind of accelerate connectivity with people through communicating online, but then sometimes in person, like it hasn't really caught up.
and,
So
and it's
you
different,
lead to
right?
these weird scenarios where you kind of know someone, but then you don't. But for what it's worth, then next time if you happen to see me again in the show, please say hi.
I will
I love
try.
it.
I will try. I promise that.
That was
So,
that was an interesting night actually because I was playing with Pain and Salvation that night,
correct, correct.
and we were playing I think 10 minutes down the road, and Leo and I, the drummer of Pain and Salvation, we wanted to see some of Haken, so we just walked over, saw I think three songs, and then came back just in time for our own set.
So there you go. There's
Yes.
my excuse. I didn't want to eat of some of your time that you didn't have enough. So thank you for giving me a better explanation. I'm good now.
You can sleep. You can sleep at night now, man.
Correct,
It's
I
all
will.
good.
Just by looking the release dates of Nectar and Dormant, one can easily say that it took you less time to write and record, right?
Yeah, actually, the dates would make you believe that, but the
Mm-hmm.
truth is actually the opposite.
Okay.
We did Nectar very, very quickly. Nectar was done from the beginning of writing through the end of mastering, so the entire album process, I think, was 4 months.
Okay.
And this one was actually a good deal longer, and there are a few reasons for that. Some of them are somewhat boring reasons, like having the time in a busy work schedule and everything. But the primary reason for that is that we I can't really think of another way how to put it than this. We tried really hard on this album. So much effort that went into it. The composition was meticulous. The song choice was meticulous to, pick the very best songs. The production was meticulous. We really, every single level of detail from the very beginning to the very final mastering stage, everything took longer than perhaps expected, but we set ourselves such a high bar for this album. So, it's a product of that, but we started so soon after the release of Nectar, like we basically immediately started working on the new album. So we're still able to do it in, you know, 15, 16 months after
So
the release of Nectar, which is great.
I was trying to say it took you calendar time, less time. However, this album has more stuff in it. You have more layers. You are using more keyboards. Hell, I think you have drums there. And if it weren't the video clip for Churches, I wouldn't have known that you had guitar there.
Yeah, there's actually guitar on every song, and
There you go.
yeah, the first song, the first single, Construct, the I'd say half the guitars are recorded by Tom, and then on every other song, I play guitars, and that's not even the limit to the instrumental experimentation. On track 4, Just Above the Clouds, I play shakuhachi, the Japanese flute, and on track 7, The Real Me, I played mandolin as well. So there's all kinds of stuff going on in this album. That's not even beginning to get into all the hardware analog synths that I was obsessing over when making this album.
And that these fact ties to what you said that it took you more time actually to work and deliver Dormant.
Yeah, because we pushed every boundary, I feel. I think every way in which we could stretch ourselves, we did. And, Tom and I are quite restless as composers and performers. We really want things to feel fresh. I kind of feel like if I'm just regurgitating a past album, there's not really a point to doing it. People may as well just listen to the last album. So I'm always trying to push things. And I'd say one of the biggest ways that we did push things is this sonic element and new sound textures, because to put it simply, I got a lot of stuff. and
go on, sorry.
And I was putting all this stuff to the test. So this is actually a beautiful thing. A lot of the songs on Dormant have their originations in specific instruments. And it's special for me because I have a very particular relationship with instruments. It's actually quite spiritual for me. I believe that every instrument, every piece of musical equipment has a soul and it has unique things it wants to say. And so a lot of the music on Dormant is the immediate specific result of experimenting with a new or relatively new instrument and seeing where it takes me. Perhaps one of the best examples being the song Churches, where the primary keyboard part that comes in the beginning and becomes the chorus theme is a demo for a brand new synthesizer I had gotten, the Prophet Rev 2 from Sequential Audio. And I unboxed it, and the very first sound that it loads by default, with a little bit of tweaking, I just played that immediately. That was the soul of that instrument. That's what it wanted to say to me. And I actually just sent it to Tom as a sample of, hey, I got this new cool toy. Check it out. And he said, man, you got to save this. That could be a song idea. And Churches was born. And there are a lot of stories like that throughout the album of specific instruments inspiring something fresh. And it takes us in new directions because of that.
Honestly, I don't see that as taking you guys into direction. I think you're just my interpretation of things without being a musician, right? I'm just a listener. So you guys learn each other through Nectar and satellites, and now this you planted the seed, so to speak, and now everything is flourishing and everything is going to different directions. You cannot pick and choose that Dormant is heading to direction A and not B. No, it's everywhere. And that's something
It's exactly like if you plant wildflowers.
Yes.
And then they grow. You can't always anticipate where they grow or how they grow, but if you want to be a nurturing, I suppose, plant parent, you should be attentive to where it wants to flourish. Correct. And let it go where it wants to go. And that's a big part of our process, is being honest about where we see ourselves going musically and what's inspiring us, and not closing ourselves off from those things. So if we had some stupid rule where we can't use guitar, which was never a conscious rule, but it turned out that way on the first two albums. But then we're not afraid to say, hey, let's use guitar. Why not? There's no rule that says we can't. That's where our creativity wanted to grow. So, it is completely natural, and it's really not the kind of thing you can contrive and just do for the sake of doing.
Yeah, and honestly, I wasn't expecting from either of you to do exact follow rules. I mean, Silent Skies is not about that. It's quite the opposite. Let it grow and see where it takes you. So yeah,
exactly. That's why it's such a fulfilling project for us. Is it's for both of us. I think it's the band where we're able to stretch out the most and try things that we can't try on in other projects. And there's so many things we experimented with, like the song "The Real Me." The verses are entirely vocoder, and we had never really experimented with a vocoder approach before, or a vocal synth approach. And it was just one of those things where, why not? It's there. Let's try it. We're inspired to do it. To hold ourselves back from that would not just be silly, it would actually be dishonest. It would mean that the presentation of what we're giving to the listener is in some way dishonest or a compromise of what we truly want to do. And I think the second you start compromising in that way, the quality of what you do is impacted. And as a result, your ability to connect to the listener is impacted because listeners love authenticity. Listeners love hearing their favorite artists do something authentic.
However,
so the less authentic you are, the more the listeners will not appreciate it.
However, and I don't want to follow that path, but I need to say that, you know that in metal especially, some fans expect from a band to produce this type of music and nothing else. If they go beyond, cross any of these imaginary boundaries, oh man, they have sold out and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, there is very much I think fans get protective of the music that they like, and they view any sort of compromise to that sound as, it's like they almost take it personally when that happens.
That's okay.
But
I cannot imagine myself putting boundaries to someone who is creating. I mean, let that person create and see. If I like it, I like it. If I don't, then there's other things.
I agree. And I also think that a lot of people are skeptical of motive when they hear change.
Mm-hmm.
They hear a band change and they don't trust that it's for the right reasons. I really feel like the majority of bands who get softer over the years, they do so because they want to. But a lot of fans feel like they sold out. Like, you can look at Opeth, for example, and people saying that Michael sold out. But Heritage is far less commercial than Ghost Reveries. If his goal was to sell out to reach commercial success, Heritage was a very bad idea, to be honest. But a lot of fans don't have that trust for some reason. But I don't know. I don't really have that much insight to offer there.
There's nothing.
It doesn't make much sense to me.
No. So the real me in that, I like the synthwave quality that you have there, and to be honest, Roxette came to my mind. And also a little bit in Turtles.
Ah, yeah. Okay, yeah.
So that is something.
Sure, yeah. I mean,
I was saying that
go ahead.
Part of let it loose. I don't care. Let it lead you, because at some point music leads you. You set the foundations, and then you follow whatever your gut is telling you to do.
Yeah, music. I've always felt this way, that music has some element of its own soul, and it does talk to you. The songs talk to you, and you have to be paying attention to where the song wants to go. And to a certain extent, you can't let your own ego get in the way of the song's ego. The song is the most important thing. And the real me took us in all kinds of strange directions, Right, it does have this Roxette, or, another artist that I was thinking of when working on it was Peter Gabriel was a big influence for me,
sure.
Especially musically speaking. But, and then adding in the vocoder, vocal synth quality, and then adding in mandolins, it's like what is happening here? But it was all just because of paying attention to the song. And I just felt like at each point in the song, it required something very specific. And it would have been foolish for me to say, no, song, I don't care about what you want. I want to do this. You can't have that kind of ego when you're being a songwriter, because You're just going to do a disservice to your music.
Yeah. Okay. What about the cover artwork? I was trying to make the connection between the cover artwork, what I see, and the word Dormant. So it's like Tom's lyrics, I guess. You can have different interpretations. So what I'm looking at is someone being in limbo or dormant between two huge changes. But my wife told me, well, this is autumn and this is the perfect time for the album. So how do you approach this, let's say, vague maybe meanings behind the songs? Do you actually talk, have discussions with them?
We are, to some extent, interested in making things that are open to interpretation, because I think that the beauty of art in general that is open to interpretation is that instead of providing answers, it inspires questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that quality in good art. I love when art is not interested in telling me the answer, but art is inspiring me to ask a different set of questions than I might ask in general. And I think all aspects of the album Dormant are intended to provoke people to ask themselves particular questions.
Right.
And to particularly perhaps be an invocation for people to truly ask yourselves the hard questions and hold up the mirror and not be afraid of what you see. And some of the lyrics have 3 or 4 or 5 different layers of meaning because they're all getting at different layers of these questions. And it's like, if you look at yourself, you're peeling back the layers of the onion, so to speak, and seeing what's there. And in some of the lyrics, you can actually reflect that we don't always love what we see. In fact, sometimes when we look at ourselves, we can be quite distraught by what we see.
Yep. Most
the
of
real
the
me is
times.
one such example. Yeah, of course. But, it's number one, you have to do it. That's how you grow. You have to grapple with who you are and, all the aspects of what makes you tick. And number two, that's, if people don't do that, then I think the challenges of living in the modern world become tenfold.
Yes.
Because it's so difficult in the modern world to think and reflect and be at peace and, turn off the noise. Because everything is noise, in the modern world. And I don't mean to sound like a Luddite when I say that. I actually do enjoy the modern world, but it's still difficult to pay attention to yourself and be truly grounded. So if nothing else, the album Dormant is simply saying, pay attention to who you are and pay attention to what's happening beneath the surface. Take a second, breathe, reflect, and find that spirit that lies dormant within you. That essential life force that if you really are paying attention to it, if you really are attuned to yourself, it can inspire you to give you the ammunition you need to deal with the peaks and valleys of life. But you have to take that step inwards in order to understand that.
Yeah, the challenge here is that it takes so much time to look inside and start getting to know yourself. Whereas in this modern world, the bad side of the modern world is that it moves so fast. And what you say no is that the overwhelming amount of information, of news, of new music. So it's a very difficult balance to maintain, if not impossible.
Yeah, it is. The modern world is obscenely fast. And,
Yes.
and there's always something to do, right? There's always something to do. There's always someone to talk to. There's always some input to put into your brain.
Correct.
And there's always some obligation hanging over your head. It's quite exhausting, to be honest. But just because it's harder to take the time to reflect, it's more important than ever to take that time. So, it becomes quite paradoxical. It becomes quite difficult. But I like to say that if we can even encourage a small fraction of people to take 55 minutes and put on our album and start reflecting and asking yourself questions that you haven't asked before, then it's worth it.
Yes. So going back to the artwork, what input did you give to the artist? Or you just gave the album title and that's all?
Actually, we had been working with Matthias to create this artwork based on a painting that he had already done.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw this painting and we both immediately felt that this was saying something that we felt was connecting with how we were feeling as creating the album. And we gave him some parameters to create something like it with some specific, guidelines. But we ended up just going to his original painting because there was a spirit in the original painting that, I guess maybe we were messing with his artistic soul when we were giving him more parameters to juggle. And his original expression was a lot more true to our expression than it was when we were trying to color it and shape it ourselves. So, yeah, it was just evocative. It's beautiful. You see the idea of things being beneath the surface.
Correct.
You see tranquility, but also pain.
Mm-hmm.
You see things changing through the seasons. These are all very important themes to what we do with Silent Skies. And I just loved that it was his artistic expression. Correct. And there was so much of his creativity in the artwork. And the beautiful thing is that all of the artwork for the album is real, physical watercolor. And he created a series of like 9 or 10 different paintings that are, there's the cover and the back cover, and then there's the CD label, and then pretty much all of the songs have associated paintings as well. So it's probably the closest that we have ever been to being able to marry the visual and auditory realms in a way that we've always dreamed of doing ever since 2017, when Tom told me he wanted to create visions for the inner eye. We've always been thinking about how, music can inspire visuals and vice versa.
Yeah.
So, it was a beautiful thing for us. I'm so proud of the physical presentation. I actually just got my copy of the vinyl yesterday.
I was about to ask you about that.
The booklet. Yeah, I just got it yesterday, and it's, man, there's something so special when you just hold the physical album, after this long process, and I haven't even put it on the turntable yet, but just paging through it and seeing it, it's like, it becomes real. There are all these stages after you finish an album, when an album becomes real. And one of them is doing these things, talking with insightful journalists such as yourselves who understand what we're doing. And I always feel like I understand the music better after I, talk with people like you. So it's,
yeah, it forces you to
month
listen.
Or so before release is so important.
Yeah, to listen and analyze. In fact, I don't feel I have listened to the album as much as I wanted, because as I said in the beginning, there are so many layers that it's kind of unjust. I'm doing injustice to it if I don't spend as much time as I want to find everything, to turn every page, if you may.
Yeah, it's one of our most complicated albums to listen to if you really want to pick out every detail. But I think it's also one of our simplest albums if you just want to appreciate melodies and chords and vibes, because I think it's very direct. It continues the Nectar tradition of being very direct, but I think it's a lot more sonically complicated than Nectar as well. So I think we wanted to write songs that were relatively immediate, but the universe underneath was so vast and expansive, and you could really get lost in it.
Yeah, the synths and the vocals are enough to get you hooked, and then once you are drawn to it, you have to do some more work. But that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Once again, you had Raphael doing the cello, and it's the press release says that you worked with him for Just Above the Clouds. But I think I hear more cello in other songs. I mean, for example, The Last on Earth, New Life. So, how much did you work with him?
So he plays on every song to some degree, I believe. I'm not entirely sure what the press release said. So, but if the press release said it was just Above the Clouds, that's wrong. He plays on every song. But it was a very interesting relationship that we've developed with him, because going back to the first album, Satellites, we pretty much wrote out everything he was to play with limited exceptions. But now on the third album, we have a relationship with him that is developed to the point that I only wrote out 1 or 2 parts in score, one of them being the cello part in Light Up the Dark. I scored out that whole section. Mm-hmm. But pretty much everything else, I sent him the songs and I told him, listen to these songs a few times, and whatever you feel inspired and motivated to do, whatever you feel the song needs, do that. And it's fine with us. So he had a lot of creative agency. And so what ended up happening is that there are a lot of parts on the album where he adds delicate layers that almost become part of the whole, and they don't jump out as a cello moment.
Right.
And Just Above the Clouds is one of those moments that jumps out as a cello moment.
Yeah, because that is a solo, obvious,
right?
Right.
Exactly. But a song like The Real Me, he plays throughout the entire song pretty much. Mm-hmm. And there's so many little delicate details. If you listen with the headphones and you're listening for things that could be cello, mm-hmm. you'll hear them.
Yes.
But it's not going to jump out as like a big cello moment. But he has a lot of these very creative impacts, which is very exciting. It's awesome to work with someone who understands us. he thinks about music the same way that we do, and it always helps when you work with great people, and he's a great guy. So very thankful to have him in our world.
What about the cover songs? What was the drive to cover these specific songs? How did you choose them?
The drive with doing covers for us is always to tackle, first of all, songs that people don't expect of us, and second of all, to think about songs that have some central emotional characteristic that maybe is not immediately appreciated by listeners because of the overall presentation of the original track. So The Trooper being a foremost example of a song that Iron Maiden fans know for its, huge, larger than life energy, those gigantic Bruce Dickinson anthemic vocals, just the sheer power and excitement of it all. But the lyrics to that song are very, very sad. They're absolutely, quite a tragic portrait.
Yes.
That Steve Harris composed with his words. And I don't know how many fans are attuned to that, or if the fans understand that. Maybe it's secondary because, how can you not pay attention to those riffs and those vocals in the original?
Correct.
But the idea with our version is to strip things back and reveal the emotional essence that's within, and by dressing the song in our style of clothing, so to speak, you can really see that essence come through. And in some cases, like with the Bruce Springsteen song, we actually changed the chords quite drastically to further amplify this emotional core. But that's really important to us. It's not so interesting for us to cover a song that already sounds like a song we would do.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, we've done that and then not released the covers because it just, it already sounded like us.
Yeah.
We did a cover 4 years ago of the song Hello by Adele. Magnificent song. Absolutely love that song. But I didn't feel like we were adding anything new to what Adele was already telling, in that song. It basically just sounded like the original song with some more cellos and tom instead of Adele.
Yeah, I
so
see
it's
what
much more interesting for us to adapt these songs and that are not traditionally suited to what we do.
To create an antithesis and therefore shine a light in a different side of the particular song, basically.
Yeah, exactly. It's like taking a 3D object and shining, a light from behind instead of to the side, and you see different perspectives. So that's always very interesting for me as an artist, to put my creativity on someone else's original composition, but still be creative about it,
Right.
If I'm not being creative about it, I don't feel like there's that much purpose.
You have the release event on August 31st in Sweden, but you have 3 albums under your belt. So is it about time to have a full tour, maybe? The States included?
It's been about time to do some shows for a long time coming, for sure. It's absolutely been a long time coming. And we had a pandemic excuse for a couple of years that Correct. I can always say, but now you can't really use that excuse anymore. So really what it comes down to is that we both so badly want to play Silent Sky's music live, but we also have very particular ideas of what we want their shows to feel like. We really don't want to compromise on that, but there's also the fact that just we want to play, and our desire to play this music live grows with each album we do. So we've been talking a lot about it. It's been something that's been a conversation with us and our management and everything. So I guess at this point I would be cautiously optimistic that some live shows are going to happen, but for the moment I don't really
even
have much
in the
more to
States.
Say that. Well, that's my dream. I love playing in the States. It would be a lot of fun to play shows in the States. I did the tour of the States last year. I had a great time.
Mm-hmm.
It is a little bit logistically ridiculous to tour the States because it's so spread out.
Oh,
sometimes it doesn't make so much sense because you feel like you're spending far more time driving in a tour bus than playing music. But
let alone the actual money that the band and the management needs to spend on that. Let's leave that on the side.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just the two of us, so it's not so hard. We don't have to take 15 people on the road or anything. So that helps.
Okay.
But one day I would absolutely love to.
Okay, I will hold you accountable. I will call you back.
Yes, please do. If you see me in another Haken show in Chicago, you can bug me. Hey, you said you're going to play a show.
Yeah, okay. That's now I have another reason to talk to you.
Exactly.
Vic, thank you very much for your time, and please extend my thank you to Tom for this another great album. Now I have to wait maybe for the vinyl to come because I have it digital, but it's not the same. It doesn't feel the same. So thank you very much.
Yeah, and there is something different about listening to something on vinyl. I'm a huge fan of that. But thank you for your kind words. It's always great to speak to you. I always feel like you understand what we're doing on a deep level, and so it's very gratifying to speak to you about these things.
Absolutely. Thank you again. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, man. You too. Talk soon.
Bye-bye.